Welcome to Behind the Kingdom with Johnny Gentleman, a podcast about drag kings, things, and everything in between, talking about the struggles of being a drag performer in a drag queen world. What's up, y'all? It's your boy Johnny here on Behind the Kingdom. Now, we were in a little hiatus because of busyness in life and adulting, but we are back with an amazing guest. Give it up for my amazing brother, drag sister, disabled activist and icon that is Leona Lionheart.
Hi, thank you for having me, Johnny. I do have to update you. I should have told you ahead of time. I'm Leona Love now.
Oh, you're Leona Love. Well, I guess we're
which
Leona
we
Love
can talk
now.
about that, actually. I think it could be an interesting topic as well.
Oh, yes, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But for all the people that don't know who you are, and I don't know, understand why they don't know who you are, but let everybody know who is Leona and where does she come from?
Yes, okay. So out of drag, I go by Lalo. In drag, I'm Leona Love. Leona is born of. So I started drag in 2019, but Leona in particular is kind of a quarantine baby. I swapped to that name, and the inspo was a big part of it was like reclaiming Leo-ness, which I know sounds very corny, but like especially for me as
It
like
sounds
a
like very
neurodivergent
Leoness.
person of color who is trans, like when I was a kid, Leo just didn't make sense. Like I did not feel outgoing, I did not feel confident, I did not feel that like self-love that Leos are supposed to have. And so a big part of Leona was like, how do I embody all of those like Leo stereotypes into like a single character? And particularly from the feminine perspective, because I feel like young women or people who are seen as women of color in particular get really heavily punished for ever exhibiting any of those. Like anytime I did say anything positive about myself when I was younger, people like didn't like that. They weren't a fan. And so the whole concept behind her was like, how do I reclaim getting to be that like powerful, confident, beautiful Leo woman, and be unapologetic for it. And so that was kind of the origin of Leona. And I've really leaned into the fact that I'm a really political person and decided like to make that a part of my drag persona as well. Which was the impetus for the show, or part of the impetus for the show that myself and my incredible creative partner Cyclops are hosting, Disabled Table, which is having its first show tomorrow. I don't know when this is being released, but tomorrow as of recording this.
Yes. Oh my God. So please, this is going to be the first show of hopefully many.
Yes.
Disabled Cable. If you're ever in LA, please go and check that out. It is the first and only disabled drag show here in Los Angeles. So please check that out. So now with this name change, so where did this name change come from that it's no longer Lionheart but Love? I'm so excited to hear this.
It feels like the next evolution of the character for me. So when it was, the initial change was about self-affirmation, right? Like letting myself sort of lean into the Leo-ness. Love feels like more where I'm at now, especially as I've started producing my own show and shifted into the like community leader role that producers end up getting. I've realized that like, so a big part of self-love for me as a person is recognizing that who I am is built by the people around me. And so that was the impetus for the change to Love, is that I wanted to lean into the fact that Leona is in this era of like, not just celebrating herself, but celebrating all of the people that surround her. And especially as an indigenous and trans performer, like that element of community is so essential to everything I do. I don't feel like there is a version of self-love for me that exists without like celebrating, embracing my communities, my friends and family, and all of the people that I love. So that was really the thought behind the name change, was how, like, getting to really lean into this newer evolution of Leona where it's all about love.
It's all about love. Oh my god, I love this.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
like, yes. I can totally relate. Like, we're both Leos.
Yes.
So I get the whole aspect of like there was a big period of time where well, a big majority of my life honestly, where it was hard to have self-love in myself as a Leo because that's technically the stereotype that we are. And
Yeah.
I love the factor that you're just like I'm just surrounded by love and I just want to celebrate the love around me and like the people around me and this new evolution because like you said earlier, being a BIPOC person and a person of color, it's really, we have so much hard expectations to compress our emotions, to be strong, to seem strong, quote
Yeah.
unquote, and not be vulnerable, but that there's so much strength in being vulnerable and there's so much strength in loving and being unapologetically caring. And so I love this new day for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I
uh,
It just felt really right. Like, Leona Lionheart hadn't been feeling right for a while, and it was like
mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was wrong about it. Like, I was trying to figure out where, and it hit me recently, and I was just like, oh, that's what it is, and that's what I want it to be. And it's especially, it couldn't have happened without like Disabled Cable being
Mm-hmm.
where it is now. When Sai and I first like conceived of it, I think we like knew we had something special, but I don't think we could
Yeah.
have ever predicted like how it was going to be received.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like really like such an incredible honor. Um, because it doesn't really even feel like our show, like me and Sai's show anymore. It feels
Facts.
like our show. It feels like a show that is for everyone, and it is as much built by our first cast, our incredible crew, and every single person that has supported us in every way. It feels as much like it belongs to them as it belongs to us. And I know that that's like,
Mm-hmm.
that I think is a very, it can be a cliche to say like, no, it's yours too. But like, in the case of Disabled Cable, it really, really is. There is no world in which this show could be happening in the way that it's happening without like all of the folks that have had our back.
I do like the factor that you did say this because this is genuinely how I've been seeing it and feeling it, and I think a lot of us have, is this new edition of Disabled Cable is something that we definitely didn't think that we needed, but definitely wanted. And that want has become a need now because at least for me, when you spoke, we've been talking about Disabled Cable like before you even had a
For a
name,
long time.
so
Yeah.
so a long time. So like I was so excited when you're like it's gonna happen, and then you said Sai was gonna be a part of it, and I was like that's a perfect pair right there.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
Sai and I came up with it together. Like, it was truly, and it
yeah,
was a joke at first. We were just pissed. Like, we were just mad. The thing that I've been saying about this show is that it was like born of rage and then like has been created with love. It
mm-hmm.
exists for love and it was born out of sheer rage.
But I feel like that's a majority of queer movements, right? Like a lot of queer movements start where they don't feel seen or this is not accommodating to my people, whether it's the color of your skin, your sexuality, or in this case, just shows not being considerate to people with disabilities and like just kind of giving this amazing pride of being disabled, like not being ashamed of it, but embracing it as a beautiful thing in your life. And I think that's why that's a part of the reason why a lot of us are so excited for the show is because y'all individually are just beautiful people and just so caring and so community like caring that we know that it's a show out of good intention and love. And not only that, but you're also being like, hey, we accept our disabilities. We take them as a part of us and we're embracing that. And you can embrace that too. Maybe yours is not visible as ours, but we want to celebrate that. And I know
Yeah.
for myself, like, that has been so rewarding because, like I said, like, we've been talking about this for years. And, now seeing it happen, it, like, at least for me, I can speak for myself. This has been a really nice, eye-opening experience because it's helped me to kind of embrace that I might have ADHD, that I have PTSD, I have massive PTSD,
Yeah.
and I have all these things that, I have seizure disorder. Like, I don't
Yeah.
publicly say that a lot, and I do now. Well, I did always, but, like, as far as, like, you know, I've had seizures since I was 12 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I have seizure disorder, and that's a thing about me. But, I think this show is very special, and I think it's so necessary. And I just want to thank you and Sai for making this happen because, you have a bunch of us in the back of you supporting you, loving you, cheering this show on. And I hope it just continues to be like the already success it already is, and it hasn't even started.
That really like means so much to me to hear, and like it's been, I think, one of the greatest gifts of doing this is how many of these types of conversations I've gotten to have with people, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so beautiful to me because like I have been living with disability pretty much my entire life, but I really only came
Mm-hmm.
to a consciousness of it like in 2021, I want to say. It's a
Wow.
lot more recent in my life. I was like involved in learning about disability politics for a really long time, and I had like friends tell me like, "Oh, you're such a great ally," like, and it wasn't. I didn't really realize like why it felt so intuitive to me until I like started taking my own pain more seriously, and now I've been able to like look back at my life and be like, if I could have accessed this sooner, like if I had known that like it wasn't normal to be sick all the time. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just that I was a bad student because I couldn't push through it. It was that other people weren't dealing with that. Or like it's not,
Mm-hmm.
there isn't just the baseline amount of pain that everybody is in, that like an abled body is in, isn't a lot. It's actually usually none. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that like I was walking around in pain all the time, just assuming that everyone else was too. And that like there was something
Mm-hmm.
wrong with me for not being able to deal with it. And
Yeah.
so it's been so liberating to be able to accept disability as a part of my life. And it's something that I've said like as I've been talking about the show with people is like the way I put it is if you are tremendously lucky, you too will find yourself becoming disabled. And
Mm-hmm.
if not, that means you've died young and you might already be struggling with disability as we speak. Like you might be
Yeah.
living with it right now and not know. And I know that because I was there once. And
Yeah.
it is doing such an incredible service to yourself to be able to accept that as a part of your life and truly embrace it. And like disability politics and disability justice is the greatest education I have ever gotten on like love and community like support out of every realm of like politics and social justice I've ever been a part of. There is no future for any social justice movement that doesn't include disabled people. Point blank,
Yeah.
period.
It's clearly out there, and I actually love the factor that is you're saying that you've been saying. I'm like, you know what? That's actually pretty accurate. That, like, if you're not disabled now, you might be in the future.
You will be.
Yeah, you will be because it is true. Like, and exactly how you said it. Like, when you explain about exploring your disability and kind of having more of an education about that, now I'm starting that process, and I'm doing that journey for myself of realizing that, the problems I had with, you know e- just simple things like getting hints from human beings, or like not being able to stand still, or just not just kind of feeling like everybody hates me, and I don't know why they're mad at me because they
Mm,
can't, because I'm just so much. But it's because, like, I as of recently, I've just explored a lot of podcasts about ADHD, a lot
yeah.
of like TikToks about it by professionals. And I'm like, oh my God, I've had these problems since I was like forever. Like I've had these problems, and there was a really nice study on one of them on this book that I'm listening to, where, and it kind of like blew my mind, but it was just a factor of there might be a possibility that my ADHD triggered recently as I'm older is because of my childhood trauma and that aspect of it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's unsurprising, especially because so many models of understanding neurodivergency, both autism and ADHD, are really centered around cis white boy children. And so anyone who falls outside that paradigm, like, I know that there were kids I grew up with who were cis white boy children who like had ADHD, had the diagnosis, and like had that accommodated. And then when I would exhibit like symptoms of neurodivergency, I just got punished. So like you learn to hide it, you mask it like really severely, and then just repress it. But it's gonna come out eventually. Like it manifests in your life. I will have some people be like, "Oh, I would never know that you were neurodivergent," and then I talk to other neurodivergent friends of colors, and I'm like, oh, "By the way, I have autism," and they're like, "Yeah, I knew that. I could tell." Classically, yeah. And I do say, like, when I have friends who are like considering whether or not they're neurodivergent, I will let. I'm sure I've said this to you. I'm like, if we
you've told me.
Can maintain a friendship for multiple years, like if we get along this well, it's really unlikely that you're not.
It's very true.
Because I don't know how to talk to neurotypical people.
I honestly don't either. I'm like, I think for myself, and I might be wrong, but this is what I've told I've told Taylor this, is like, I feel like I'm out of like all the normies. I feel like I might surround myself around normal people, and I'm just like the silly kid, like little brother in the corner that's just like, just kind of like doing everything. It's like, what are you doing? What are you wearing?
What's going
then
on?
just like making a joke. What's going on? It's just like, this all makes so much sense now.
Yeah, for real.
But thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This just added to this episode, especially just because this is something that is very much not spoke about in drag culture, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to do this podcast, was just to talk about things that the non cackety cat meow things that you don't realize about drag. But this was really nice. And just to get back onto the topic at hand today, my question was that, as a trans masc person, what made you want to explore the drag queendom world?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've started talking about this recently in relation to the fact that I'm now debuting a king persona 4 years in. But a big part of what drew me to being a queen is I started drag like probably just a couple months in on like testosterone. Like I was really newly on HRT, and like to me, I was really drawn to queen drag. I think a big part of it, and I jokingly will say like that I was living full time as a drag queen for 20 years. Like I pre-transition was very feminine. Like I would wear full face of makeup no matter where I went. Extreme drag queen lashes, fully like 22 millimeter lashes. I used press-ons. I have never really gotten like acrylic nails, but like I was very femme. I was a full-time drag queen. And so for me, a big part of the draw towards queen drag, part of it was like a reclamation of the feminine things that I really did love. Getting the chance to like engage with that on my own terms. Like to be the very feminine energy that I have, that I adore, but not in a way where it was like I have to do this to hide something, or I have to do this because people want me to. Just doing it for the love of it and to have fun with it again. And like that was a big
Yeah.
part of it. I think also like the thought of doing king drag when I was that newly transitioning, for me personally, just felt way too vulnerable. Um, like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to conceive of a drag persona at that time for a king that felt different from who I was as like a person exploring my gender. And that just wasn't what I was looking for from drag from
Mm-hmm.
a personal perspective. I really wanted to be able to keep my transition at that point as like a separate thing from what I was exploring through drag. Um, and now I have a different perspective on it. I'm a lot farther into both my drag career and my medical transition. And I feel a lot more comfortable exploring both energies. But at the time it really was
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to play around with the fem.
Um, yeah, I think what a lot of non-drag people don't understand is that when you get into this persona character, when you get into this world of king or queen or non-binary, um, the person that you are on stage is not the person you are in behind it. Um, and sometimes when it comes to drag, sometimes you feel more comfortable exploring one side of the spectrum of gender when it comes to drag than you do with the other. I know for myself, just like you expressed that, um, it was hard for you to explore the drag king side of you uh, while you were transitioning. For me, of course, it was the total opposite, but um, but being a king helped me understand that and accept that masculinity part of me that was always that I wasn't able to explore in my household.
Yeah.
And so it was my chance to explore that for myself. And then after transitioning, or at least, my beginning start of transitioning, um, I started to actually really expand and explore a more gender fluidness of my drag,
Yeah.
where I'm wearing a corset, I'm wearing, like stockings, I'm wearing heels, and things that like wearing a
Mhm.
fucking dress. I hated dresses. I
Mhm.
did not stand them. Like, and so like, and every time I wore it, I was like, get it off of me. But like once I felt my transition, I felt comfortable in my skin. I was able to accept that and feel validation in myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole great thing about drag is whatever spectrum you explore, whether it's queen, king, non-binary, whatever it is, you get to explore a part of you and kind of get to know yourself again as far as getting to know that person and more about that, and just kind of um, finding more beautiful things about yourself. Like, right? Like, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, so much of what drag is is an exploration of gender. Even when it's a
Mm-hmm.
rejection of it, it's still ultimately an exploration of what being genderless feels like. And I think that's
Yeah.
what makes it so powerful. And I think that's also what makes it so like threatening to like cis het alt right hegemonies is like
Mm-hmm.
it is a exploration, a deconstruction, a celebration of all the things gender can be, can't be, is, isn't like. And I think there's something so powerful to that, and something that like for trans performers can be so exciting and affirming of like, to me, like being something that was very interesting and exciting for me as like a trans mask queen is that like I've gotten to see my body change both in comparison to the masculine and to the feminine. And it's like
Yeah.
a really cool, exciting thing where like I'm doing more lately to like feminize my body when I get in drag than what I was like when I first started drag, because I was like, oh, I'm already there. I can just pop on like this, that. I don't have to wear tights. I don't have to wear this, whatever, whatever. And like, 4 years in on testosterone, And just as I've not had any surgeries, not that anyone needs to know that, but like I think this speaks to the power of HRT. 4 years
Yeah.
in on testosterone, like I have to do a lot more with my body if I'm going for like a specifically feminine silhouette. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so exciting from so
Yep.
many different perspectives, from an artistic perspective, from a perspective just as me as a person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's been one of the like coolest things about doing drag is like I'm now at this point where I get to really experiment with like the gray areas between like what is considered binary masculine and binary feminine. And like that's I feel like
Yeah,
where my drag has
most
really taken
definitely.
off.
At least my sisters, they have sons, and try to teach them about, don't put any pressure on them about wanting, like, be a man or do any of these things, because, if they want to explore their femininity, if, one of my nephews literally got like a thing of yarn and like put it on his head and then swung it around like a ponytail, and then he was just like, I'm this Blair, like a WWE like diva wrestler.
I love
And I
that.
was like, and he was like, I'm walking runway. And like, he's 10 years old. I didn't teach him that. I don't do
Yeah.
anything. I see him like once a month, right? Like, I talk to him all the time, but like, I'm not telling him like, you need to do this. Like, we're not, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
These kids, but being able to, us, without even us speaking, just being spiritually expressing the genderless world to the people around us, specifically kids. We're introducing this idea that uh you don't have to be a man to be, like, you don't have to be a man to be misogynistic or macho. You can be feminine. You can be a woman that's like masculine like vibes. Like, it doesn't, you're validated either way.
Yeah.
And I'm loving that that's the universe that we're creating in this generation, is the generation where hopefully kids don't have to be gender specific and have gender expectations, and be able to just be themselves and explore their masculinity and their femininity regardless of what gender they are. And this is the beauty of drag. This is why a lot of us do drag, because it's the place where we can explore ourselves and our gender, whether it's, I feel masculine today, I feel feminine today, I feel both today. And just kind of like it's celebrating that through the art of drag, you know?
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A
It's just,
thousand
it's
percent.
gorgeous.
It's
It's
so
gorgeous.
fun. It's so fantastic. Truly. I like especially starting drag while already out as trans. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think I went into it thinking like, oh, but I already like I know what my gender is though. So like drag
Yeah.
isn't going to be a gender exploration for me the way it is for like people who find out they're trans through drag. And like that
Mm-hmm.
has not been the case. Like drag has absolutely like very much deepened my own relationship with my gender. I don't think it's changed it at all, but it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely like given me far more nuanced perspectives on how I relate to my own gender. Like I
Yeah.
at this point I am identifying as two spirit, which is a term that is like very, very meaningful to me. A big part of it is because I very much feel like the ways in which my gender is fluid and non-binary can really only be best understood from an indigenous perspective. So I that's why I choose the term two spirit over non-binary necessarily. I've added ya onto my pronouns. It's he, him, ya. Ya is a pronoun in Nawat. It is the
Ooh.
only pronoun in Nawat that is third person. There is no gendered pronouns. Nawat is a genderless language. And so for me, I don't ever really use the they them for myself,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like the best way to explain the ways in which my gender is fluid is through a pronoun that is the only pronoun for other genders. My gender does not exist in contrast to anything, it is holistic. It is all encompassing.
Yeah.
And that was why I wanted to add that to my pronouns. But like, I really only got there through the world of drag. Like, it has allowed me to meet and have conversations with so many different types of queer people, not even all trans people. I've had conversations with cis drag performers that completely transformed the way that I looked at my gender.
Yeah.
Shout out Black T, who is part of the initial,
Yes.
the first disabled cable cast. I've told her multiple times, I'm like, I had a conversation with you about gender that unlocked so many things for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been such a gift to get to like really deepen and explore parts of how I understand my gender through drag that like I don't think I would have been able to.
No, I totally agree, and I think for myself, because I also identify as a two-spirit person, being half Mayan and indigenous Nicaraguan. Um, when I started to explore my non-binariness, it was the only way I could understand and feel seen about my gender was through the identification of two-spiritness. And for folks that are listening or watching, two-spiritness, and please correct me if it's different from where you're from, but the way I understand it and the way that it's perceived for me is two-spirit is an indigenous term in which a person is has both a masculine and feminine spirit into one. And at least in Mayan culture, the two-spirited people were seen as the very powerful like guiders, leaders of the tribe, just due to the factor that they can connect both through the femininity and the masculinity of the people, and understand both perspectives and make a solution uh, by understanding both and putting them together. So for me, it was that was when I started to realize, like, oh yeah, like I don't identify, because I don't identify as a man. I don't like identifying as a man. But it's because of the factor that, I just so happened to reverse my transition where I felt more masculine. I felt more myself being masculine on the outside and feminine on the inside rather than reversed. And so for me, that was a really like mind blowing moment. And it really just helped me really appreciate where I come from and the indigenous side of like my ancestors.
Yeah.
Because the factor that this gender, right, two-spiritedness has existed for centuries, and like somehow society made it like, nope, this is not normal,
Mm-hmm.
is like wild. It is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about like Two Spirit as a term, because Two Spirit originated with, I can't remember the year, but originated with a pan Indigenous conference where it is a loose translation of it's a specific tribal term. I wish I could remember the tribe, northern, not south of the border. Um, but it originated with a specific term, but was essentially introduced as like, here is a term that can kind of aggregate a lot of different cultural identities and allow
Mm-hmm.
indigenous people across many different tribes and nations to have a sort of unifying term to describe indigenous queerness.
Yeah.
And so I think what's so beautiful about the term Two Spirit is it can mean different things to different people. I do
Yeah.
definitely know folks who like don't identify as Two Spirit and still have access to the original words and identities and terminologies from their specific tribe. But for folks who have either like had those terms and identities kind of stolen by colonization or don't know theirs from their tribe, or their tribe might not have a specific term anymore, they get to access the term Two Spirit to describe their indigenous queer experience. And it can mean such different things for different people. Like, I identify as a Two Spirit man in particular. Man is the best way my gender can be understood in
Yeah.
specific gender terms, but then two-spiritness allows for a much fuller picture of what that means for me in particular from the lens of being a Native person.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of that's also the beauty of like knowing your culture, right? Like it's just the beauty of I know finding out and trying to discover myself as an indigenous, queer person. I was very much like I like non-binary, but I don't feel like it's 75% there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel
that's I think how I've felt
75%
about it.
validated. And then Two Spirited happened, and I researched it and I looked at it in the perspective of like watermelon Mayans, and I was like, this makes so much
Yeah.
sense. Like it it's great. It's that's it, that's it. And it's not only helped me understand myself, but it's also made me appreciate and love my culture as an indigenous person from Central America. Um, and just like be proud of that factor, be proud of my culture. And, I hope people that are listening to this little conversation, especially this little part in this episode, if they're ever questioning, and learning about two-spiritedness, know that it's valid.
Yeah.
And, we are the two examples of that for sure.
Yeah, and I love what you said too about like the role that two-spirit people have played in various native cultures, because I've been having a lot of conversations about this actually lately, and have recently connected with a Nawa elder who is incredible and has really given me a lot of new perspectives on a lot of things. And yeah, I think it's a similar thing for me in that we are very much like mediators and connectors. And I actually like that is something I bring into my drag as well. It's part of the inspiration behind Love, and it's also part of like um, how I see myself as a trans masc drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like my dream for the drag scene and my dream for like what role I want to play in it is I feel like I very much straddle the worlds between kings, queens, and things, especially the more androgynous and gender fucky my drag has gotten over the years, the more I feel like
Yes.
I am like in this position where I am all and none of the above. And I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
exactly where I belong. And what I like dream of for drag as a whole is like, I've heard a lot of conversation about like queen specific spaces versus king specific spaces versus this versus that. And like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with spaces that are like specific for certain types of drag. Especially for kings who have been so overlooked historically, so pushed to the sidelines. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously nothing wrong with like king only shows and like uplifting
Yeah.
and celebrating the incredible contributions that drag kings make to our community. But also,
Mm-hmm.
like, part of my dream is like that, and also it feeling completely natural and fine and non competitive for kings and queens and things and every kind of drag to be in the same space, like uplifting and celebrating each other. And I don't think that that's a dream that is that far away from the future. I see it in so many places already in the drag scene. And like, I'm excited for there to be more and more spaces where it is queens uplifting kings and
Mm-hmm.
kings and queens getting to like celebrate and enjoy each other's presence in the same spaces, and sing each other's praises. Like, because I think I've said this to you that like even as a queen, so many of my biggest drag inspirations are drag kings. Like,
Yeah.
there have been so many. The incredible Charles Galen, who like
Mm-hmm.
wows and floors me every time I see him perform.
All the
Um,
time.
you, Johnny, as a person and as a producer, as a host, as a performer, like you have been so inspirational to me and like such a model for like what I want to bring to the
Oh,
scene.
thank you.
Yeah, you
Thank
weren't ready. You
you.
weren't ready for that. You weren't expecting
I
that,
was
were you?
not ready for that. I was like,
But yeah, there's
If you're not seeing this on the YouTube, I am doing a very sad, really cute face of blushingness,
it's
and
true.
that's that.
It's true. It's happening. But yeah, I think like I'm what I want to do and who I want to be is like one of those mediators and connectors who gets to like build those spaces for all of us where like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you are a drag king, a drag thing, a drag queen, like you are being treated and celebrated and applauded in the same way as every other performer out there.
Yep. And yeah, it's the it's so funny that you're saying all this because I just had like an epiphany right now that like we both have the same hope and expectation for the drag world,
Oh
which
yeah.
is like we're very much we're both definitely like mediators, the ones in between the worlds, where we have so much love and respect for drag queens. Drag queens maybe gave you
Yeah.
your start. Maybe was the first one of the first gigs I ever got in LA, and my first residency ever, so shout out to Maybe a
Were
Girl.
we born in
um
the same place at
um
Green Eggs and Glam?
no,
No.
I was, I think, 6 months into doing drag by that time.
Ah, okay.
And then, but you were helping her out at the shows, and then that's how we became friends. And then you were
Mm.
like, I want to explore queen drag, and
Oh,
then
I wasn't sure if you were
that
born
started.
there before me, like if that was where you
Yeah,
originated too.
yeah, no, because I originated from the Inland Empire, and then I
Oh, that's
left
right.
because, and then so I went to LA, and then that's where I've stayed since. But you know, both of us have been our biggest mentors and the biggest support systems in the beginning have always been drag queens, and we both have such an amazing respect and love for drag kings and drag queens and everything in between. And I do agree with you that like my expectation and my hope is to merge, to get the bridge started where drag queens can start respecting drag kings and vice versa, and they can help each other out. Because if you're a drag queen who believes in drag kings, the best way you can be an ally is by advocating for drag kings and, telling, producers, if producers are asking about a talent that they are trying to look for and you think of a drag king, suggest that,
Yep.
and and vice versa. There's been multiple times where I've referred a lot of drag queens for shows and parties and whatever it is. And same thing with drag kings. I do the same thing, and it's why I created Dapper Puss, where Dapper Puss in every one of my shows is dominated by drag kings, but we also have drag queens that are our quote unquote token queens
Hmm.
that are just genuinely there to just have a good time, and they just are end up having this very fun relationship with these queens, and these kings have these great relationship and love where it's just at the end of the day, like backstage, it's just fun. It's just a bunch of queers having fun, enjoying the art. And that's where I agree with you, and it's both of our dreams to just see that and make it be a normal thing.
Yeah.
The it needs to happen. The only way we can, like, there's more important things to worry about than the segregation of kings and queens. Like, there's literally people, like the right wing people, trying to attack us, trying to kill us, trying to destroy our happiness and our
Yeah.
validation as human beings. So how about we focus on working together to eliminate that, than just not wanting to book each other because you're a queen, I'm a king. We're
Yeah.
gonna keep separate. It's like, no. What? How do you think Stonewall happened, y'all? How do
Yeah.
you think it happened?
I 100% agree. We have to have each other's backs. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have to, because there's no way forward without that. Like, and
Yeah.
it really, like, I've seen it at your shows. I've seen it at shows that I've been part of. Like, it's so close. We're so close to it, to being able to like have those spaces that are fully like all kinds of drag performers are there just enjoying each other's company and celebrating each other. Like, it's real and it's
Mm-hmm.
happening already now as we speak. We, Sai and I, early on in the process of planning for Disabled Cable, like hard committed to like, we're booking 2 queens, 2 kings every show.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's gonna be. There's always gonna be an equal distribution of kings and queens. We do know that like both Sai and I as hosts are technically queens, but also now that I'm introducing a king persona, it's a lot more loosey goosey. Um,
I mean, that's the beauty of drag that I've seen lately, where it's like drag artists are coming out and they're like, I not only have a king persona, but I have a queen persona.
mm-hmm.
And I love that. Like, one example is like, now it's you, so it's Flaco and
Flaco,
Leona.
yeah.
Like, and I'm so excited for this. But like, and then there's also like Pterodactyl, where it's like
Yep.
Terra and Dactyl. And that's the beauty of it, because even though it's the same person, it's two different people.
Oh yeah,
And
and what
it's
people are gonna
great.
get with Flaco is gonna be really different. It's gonna be real different. I'm so
It's gonna be
excited.
so fun.
And I have
I'm so
a dear
excited.
friend who I've been working with a lot lately, just in like the queer event space in general, who is a trans femme person who has said like, oh yeah, I'm excited to start doing king drag. Like, she's never
Mm-hmm.
done drag before and she wants to start as a king. And
Yeah.
that's like, so I want as much of that as possible. I want trans masc queens, I want trans femme kings, I want every single thing in between. Like, and that to me is like the most beautiful version of the drag scene that could possibly exist. Like, just
Yes.
trans and queer and gender fucky and people just feeling fully realized in like their art and what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's an art form. And the
Yep.
gender of the performer matters so much less than like the art that they're putting out there,
Yeah.
but also
No,
can be
I
part of it.
yeah, I mean, that's the fun of drag. That's the great thing about drag, is that you don't have to primarily go straight if you're, you know, if you're a cisgendered gay man, and like you feel like you don't want to do drag queen makeup. Don't do drag queen makeup. Try to be a
Yeah,
bio king. Try to be a bio king. Be a non-binary artist. Like, there's plenty
yeah,
of them out there. Like, you don't have to just primarily like, oh, because I was like, for me, like, of course I went to the stereotype of like, I'm an AFAB person, I'm gonna become a king. And it's just like, you don't have to do that. Like,
yeah.
there's a many trans mask folks that are very, very, very talented and are amazing drag queens. You being one of them, Elle Goods, just,
Yes.
you
Oh
know,
my god.
just like even bio queens, like the amazing Brittany. Am I
Oh,
pronouncing
yes.
that
I
right?
love Brittany.
You know, Brittany is amazing, and I need to book them for one of my shows, but it's just these amounts of like brand new drag that is just so like not stereotypical, um just makes me so happy,
One
and
of
it just
my
gives me life.
one of my dear friends and like maybe one of the most talented people I've ever met, like just a brilliant genius artist, Aragati, who is currently based in Minnesota, is a
Ooh.
drag queen but does not do femme drag at all. Will like use their own bald head, sometimes does like hair drip, like paint drip hair. It Check out underscore Aragidi underscore RAGIDI. I'm so serious. One of the most talented makeup artists, and just as like full color airbrushes themselves, like it almost like alien. I don't know if that's how they describe it, but like they get really whimsical and almost inhuman with like the colors that they bring to their face. And it is
Ah.
like it's such fantastic, like really like alternative drag, and I take so much inspiration from watching the type of drag that they do, because
Yeah.
it's so exciting to see. And even myself as a queen, like I don't think I do traditional queen makeup. I've recently started
Mm-mm.
getting really into doing like clown. I've recently started getting really into doing clown white. I do like a clown white heart, but I like to just I let the number sort of draw me towards what my makeup is going to be, and I'll get as experimental with it as I feel like the number calls for.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is like if there's some part of the art form that isn't calling to you, that's okay. Like find what does call to you and embrace that, because that's what's going to
Yeah.
make you a unique and exciting drag.
Exactly. Like that's what drag is. It's a lot of trial and error. There's
Yeah.
plenty of. Oh my god! The other day I just went through a bunch of my green eggs and glam days, and I was like, "What was I thinking?" But it was a lot of trial and error. That's just being an artist. You have to take the risks. You have to experiment to understand who you are. And maybe something that
Yeah.
you never thought you could you try something out, you do it, and you're like, wow, I actually really like that. And it's a new, it just makes you even more unique, even
Yeah.
more better, even more just like rejuvenating internally, emotionally as a person too. And so
Yeah.
just for folks listening to this, just don't be afraid to experiment. Get out of the box when you can. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it works sometimes.
I was just, in terms of discomfort, like the first time I ever did a ballad, and it was a really personal, like vulnerable number. I was booked at Vanderbilt in Nashville. They had flown me out. It was a surreal experience, and I brought Big God by Florence and the Machine, and it was a number I worked really hard on. I was so pleased with like how my mix came together, and I performed it, and I went back to my hotel room afterwards, and I like sobbed because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how I had done. Like, and it felt so scary and vulnerable and unsettling. And I just like cried. I felt like I did terrible. And the next day, one of the students who was in the audience messaged me on Instagram and was like, "Thank you so much for that number. Like, I didn't even know how badly I needed it." And it was one message from one audience member, and it was enough that like now that's like a treasure drag memory. Like it
Yeah.
went from feeling like I had failed spectacularly to being one of the most meaningful performances of my entire drag career. Because like and that's, I think, the joy of trying something new and scary, is like, yeah, you might fuck up, or it might feel weird, or you might not know how you did, but there's gonna be at least one person in the audience who does connect with what you're doing there. And if you can just reach
Yeah.
that one person, like to me, that is it. Then it's worth doing the number.
Oh yeah, if my motto for sure for drag and just in life in general, honestly, is like if I can impact one person in the audience, I did my job.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
I'm done. Like I don't need wow awards. I don't need any.
No.
I don't need RuPaul like giving me something. Like I literally, if I just move one person and they say that meant so much to me, like I can die tomorrow and be happy.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
This was
And
this was a college student who messaged me, and like I know how much it sucks to be 19. Like if I can make one 19-year-old feel seen,
mm-hmm.
forget the rest of it, forget anything else. That's all I need.
No, that's it. That's it. All done. All right. I love this conversation.
Yes.
I have one last question
Yes.
regarding our topic for today. Um, but what are some unfortunate struggles that you've had to face as a trans mask drag queen?
I was thinking about this. You know, I think part of it is just like feeling a little bit outside of community. I've found my own ways to rectify this, but like it was interesting to navigate at the beginning. I noticed that a lot of folks, um, of varying backgrounds, whether it was producers for certain shows or other drag performers, what have you, a lot of folks really wanted me to be a king. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and could not conceive of the fact that I was not. Um, like, would just kind of clock my vibe out of drag and just make assumptions. And at the end of the day, like, it doesn't bother me to be seen as a king. But it
Mm-hmm.
does feel invalidating to what I do and to what I have stated that I am, for it to be hard for people to wrap their heads around the fact that I am not a drag king and that I am a drag queen. Um, and even there's been parts where I've been like really desperately craving the camaraderie of other trans mask performers and feeling like I've had struggles with accessing that. A lot of those things have been resolved at this point. I think being a non-normative performer of any kind, it means that you take on the responsibility of finding the places you fit. And it can be a
Yeah.
beautiful process and open doors for you that you wouldn't have found otherwise. But it can be isolating at first, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to do so much explaining of like who I am and what I do and why, in ways that I think other drag performers don't always have to do within their own community. But yeah, I think that's been one of the bigger obstacles. There was something that popped into my mind before we started recording that I'm now just like spacing out on. Um, but I think the other thing is like I don't know that I've had that many struggles, which like sounds so like blessed and privileged in
Privileged or
some
something.
ways. But like for me, it's more so that like I think I just don't take like no for an answer when it comes to like wanting to do my art.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I've also just been very fortunate to start drag from a place of like I was working for maybe a girls campaign when I started doing drag, and I got the incredible privilege of getting to just like hang out backstage way before I was ever in drag myself.
Yeah.
So I started with community already, and that was such a
Mm-hmm.
blessing. Like, and so many of those folks, Sai, you, like so many of those folks are still such important, meaningful parts of my life to this day. And so I was really lucky in that way. And it's something that I am now trying to like gift to my sons, my drag sons, is like, as a disabled drag mom, I can't always be at every show. I can't always like
Yeah.
rush to your house in the middle of the night or like before a brunch. But like what I
Yeah.
can do is I can offer you the community that I've been able to build for myself. What's mine in that regard is theirs.
Yeah.
And so as a relatively lucky drag performer, all I want to be able to do is offer that to newer performers. Let them know like you don't have to go this alone. And at the very least, I can be a listening ear and I can connect you to people who I know are good people who will have your back.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose of the drag world. That's the base of
Yeah.
it. Is it was before RuPaul's Drag Race. Drag was a underground thing. It was something that was to celebrate and explore your queerness and to give appreciation to gender and the strength in both sides of gender, where we had Stormy throw the first punch, we had Marsha throwing the first brick, and that in itself, both a drag queen and a drag king of color, were the reason why we have our community today.
Yeah.
And and at the end of the day, that's what drag is. That should be the purpose of doing
Yeah.
drag, is for the community, is to explore and appreciate each other's artistry, and for other people, including producers, to produce these shows to celebrate that artistry, right?
Definitely.
So it's it's why I get so aggravated when it's just these expectations of you have to be a Rue girl. You need to do splits. You need to,
Yeah.
do all these things. It's like, yes, to an extent, just because at the end of the day, everybody can do that at this point. You can learn how to do that. You can do it on
Well,
a,
no.
like, but at the end of the day, drag is about community. It's
Yeah.
about caring about your community, being there as a community, providing so much love and support, because at the end of the day, like, we're on our own.
Yeah.
As queer people, that's just how we live our life. We have to be in fear constantly, whether we go on a road trip, whether we go to the bathroom sometimes. Like, I can't go to the bathroom in Huntington Beach because they
Yeah.
don't have doors on their stalls, which is weird.
That's
Okay.
creepy.
That's massively creepy. I just
Yeah.
needed to pee and I couldn't pee because there was no door on the fucking stall. And these are the daily things that we have to deal with,
Yeah.
especially as trans people in general, let alone if we're in drag. So it's just, for the end of the ranting that I'm in right now. No, just to end my cute little rant, is just,
Oh, please.
drag is about community,
Please.
and us as a community, and especially if we have, drag children, we do it out of the kindness of our hearts and because we want the future generation of drag to be more inclusive, to be relying on each other in a positive light, for them to feel seen, because you never know what kind of home they came from. And that, in core, is what drag is. It's not about the music. It's not about flashy outfits. It's about the community that you have with each other,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
safety and protection that you are wanting to give each other to be better people and better human beings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my TED Talk.
You're no, but you're 100% right. The most powerful thing we have as both drag performers and queer people, whether you do drag or not, is
Mm-hmm.
each other. Like,
Yep.
and it's the only thing we have at the end of the day. It's the only thing anybody ever really has, is the love and support of their community or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And yeah, so to me, like, that is the there are so many things about drag that are so fun and so exciting, and that's not worth nothing. That's worth so much. Queer joy is worth so much, but it's still the focal point, the like guiding light of it should always be community and creating something that can sustain each other.
Yeah. And you said it best. You. So for our last question, for you, what are some tips and advice that you would give to a trans masc drag queen?
Ooh, tips and advice. Gosh, see the thing I referenced this a while ago with my sons, is that like I I have a hard time giving advice, right? Because I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, drag is so personal. So my
Mm-hmm.
advice would be, find what excites you about drag. Don't worry
Oh.
about like what other people are doing. Have inspirations, have people that are inspiring to you, but figure out what it is about drag that is exciting to you personally, because that's going to look different for everyone. And it might
Yep.
take you a while to find that, and don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be afraid to try something and then find out, like, oh, that actually wasn't for me at all. Figure out what it is about drag that is for you, and that really, like, when you think about it, just like gets you excited. That to me, I think, is the most important part. Don't feel like you have to be a queen in X, Y, or Z kind of way. Like I said, I know so many queens, myself included, who do really non-normative makeup. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so figure out what it is that is personal to you about drag, and I think then so many other things are gonna.
Yes. Oh, I love this advice. It was great. All right. Well, that's it for today on Behind the Kingdom. Thank you so much, Leona Love, for being on the episode. Just before we
you.
head out, can you let the people know where they can find you, how they can tip you, and any kind of events that are coming up, such as Disabled Cable?
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram at Leona the Leo. You can tip me on Venmo at I think Lalo Leona. Is it the worst thing in the world if I check right now? Because I've
No.
changed it. It's okay. It's Leo Lalo at Leo Lalo on Venmo if you want to tip me. And Disabled Cable, the first show is tomorrow as of recording this, so that may or may not still be active as the time this goes up. I'm not sure. But stay tuned on my Instagram, and there will be more very soon. We are still technically in the crowdfunding phase, and you can find information about that on my Instagram as well. We're hoping to
Yes.
be able to bring this to folks at least once a month, and there will hopefully be some exciting news in regards to the recording of certain performances and stuff to stay tuned for down the line.
Amazing. Yeah. So please do me a favor if you're listening or if you're watching, please do me a favor and tip this amazing performer. Please go and follow Disabled Cable. Go follow Psy. Everybody
Yes,
in between.
Cyclops underscore drag. Cyclops
Yes.
spelled like the mythical beast or monster, whatever a Cyclops is.
Yes. Whatever. Yes. I think of it the best way I remember Cyclops, how to spell it is through Monsters Inc. But that's because I'm a child.
I love it.
But please do me a favor and please tip this amazing queen. And if you like she said, please do me a favor and go and donate to their spot fund. Please, all the money is just to produce the show. If you don't know how hard it is to produce the show, please listen to the episode before this one. It is a lot of money. It is a lot of work. And the best thing you can do, especially to keep amazing shows like this that are centered towards communities that are not represented, is the best way you can is not only by sharing the flyers, but also donating if you can. So please do me a favor and do that. Thank you so much, Leona, for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
This was so much fun. This was much needed. Thank you so much to everybody listening, everybody watching. Please do me a favor. Go listen to our other episodes that are not only informative, but you can also connect with other amazing artists on this podcast. So please do me a favor, do that. Have a dapper day, stay dapper. And just as a reminder, if you don't support Drag Kings of Things, are you really doing drag? I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you for listening to Behind the Kingdom with Johnny Gentleman. Please do me a favor and follow us on Instagram at DapperPlusENT. That's right, DAPPERPUSSENT on Instagram. If you have a topic, have a comment, or anything in between, please do me a favor and email us at dapperpuss@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram. If you want to follow all of our amazing guests, please do me a favor and go and look at the links on our bio. Look at our websites at dapperpussdk.com. And at the end of the day, if you're not supporting drag kings and things, are you really doing drag? I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye.